the penultimate episode of Doctor Who Season 14 featuring Ncuti Gatwa playing Dr. Ncuti premiered this week. And honestly, it was not the worst of the 7 episodes so far this season.
Was that a compliment?
At some point, this may have been the most Dr. Ncuti has acted like an actual doctor.
My word. High praise.
Unfortunately, for the episode being the lead up to the season finale, this one really just kind of missed the mark. So we open up this episode with the TARDIS flying through London, coming in for a landing in unit headquarters. Not certain why it's landing like this in Avengers Tower, but whatever. And Dr. Ncuti makes a flamboyant appearance.
Give me the love.
As I've said before, I don't like Ncuti Gatwa's portrayal of the Doctor in this series so far. That's why I call him Dr. Ncuti. I don't feel he's the actual Doctor. He's missing the mark on a characterization. As I said before, he's playing Ncuti Gatwa, cosplaying as the Doctor, from my opinion. But on the positive side, this is about it for the flamboyance of this episode. But, you know, we are back at unit, so we get to see some of our unit favorites we've seen in the last year. We had, of course, Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, daughter of Brigadier Alistair Stewart, Colonel Ibrahim, and the Vlinks, both of whom we saw in the last of the 3 60th anniversary specials, The Giggle. And we meet some new people to unit. We meet first Morris Gibbons, who is a scientific advisor. He appears to be a young little person who's described as a 13-year-old genius due to a passing asteroid. There's also Harriet, last name of Arbinger, which apparently will become important later in the episode. And also Rose Noble. Yes, that's right. The transgendered child of Donna Noble is here at unit headquarters. And I'm not quite certain why. Last I remember, Rose Noble was like 15 or 16 years old. I'm guessing this is a high school internship of some sort, because there's no reason for Rose Noble to be here, even though Rose knows who the Doctor is. And of course, she's greeted in the most proper way by the Doctor. And then, of course, Ruby meets her.
Come back aboard.
And of course, that's not the only time in this episode that someone remarks on Rose's appearance.
Aren't you a beauty?
Thank you.
Whatever you think of transgender people, and I certainly have my opinions, which I'm really not going to get into in this review. If you want to have a trans person be an actor in an episode, fine, whatever. The problem here is, in this episode, Rose Noble has basically no purpose. I have no idea why Rose is here other than to, check a box. Because Rose basically stands around, goes off with Ruby just to retrieve a VCR tape, then stands around some more. So literally, this is kind of the definition of tokenism.
Look, I know that sounds harsh, but it's true.
So Dr. Ncuti is here to solve the mystery. Yeah, and that's the mystery of who this woman is who keeps showing up throughout their adventures. Of course, we've seen this woman before. She's played by actress Susan Twist. The Doctor says that she's shown up several times as they've been journeying. One time as a communications officer on Pacifico del Rio. That's the Space Babies episode. Another time as an ambulance in the 51st century. As Lindy Pepper Bean's mother in the Fine Time episode, even as a portrait in 1813, the whole Bridgerton episode. He says on Planet Sloog, she appeared as a Slugma. Yeah, I'm looking at this, and that's flat out of Borg. I mean, come on, this is literally Sucutus of Borg.
I am Locutus of Borg.
He also says that she showed up as a griffin on planet Verarsate, and this looks honestly more like the Night King from Game of Thrones. So Dr. Ncuti thinks that this person is here somewhere on Earth at this time.
She must
be here. So I'm hoping that UNIT can find her and analyze her.
UNIT has already figured it out. Yeah, this person's name is Susan Triad, and she's the owner of Triad Technology. She's been the owner since 2021, some sort of big tech conglomerate, and she's about to make an announcement to make some revolutionary technology free to the world. Then Ruby points out that Susan is the same name as the doctor's granddaughter. And could this be the doctor's granddaughter?
Susan is the name of my granddaughter.
And to further this possibility that Susan is a granddaughter, we see that the name S Triad Technology is actually an anagram for TARDIS.
S Triad spells out TARDIS. The name is TARDIS Technology.
Well, obviously.
Apparently, UNIT had already figured out, which is why they were, keeping an eye on her. In fact, Mel Bush, former companion of the 6th and 7th Doctor, working for UNIT, is actually undercover, trying to get a DNA sample of Susan to see if she's human or alien.
It's going to be brilliant, Susan. I wanted to cheer.
Now, here's something I don't get, besides the Susan being the doctor's granddaughter. So Susan Triad has been this big tech conglomerate person since 2021, and Ruby started journeying with the doctor in 2024, which would mean she would have been there when Susan Triad was becoming a big deal, and it's supposed to be like Elon Musk. Are you telling me that some 19, 20-year-old woman is not going to know who the biggest tech person in the world is? Because that's how they're portraying Susan Triad. So at no point did Ruby go, you know what? This person we keep seeing show up, that looks like tech magnate Susan Triad. Yeah, that's who that looks like to me.
How does one miss that?
I can't figure out why the writers didn't think about this. I mean, literally, same time period, right? How did they miss this? I guess they were too busy focusing on, telling important narrative and messaging over telling a story or recognizing what's going on with the story, trying to connect the dots. Again, RTD's focusing on what's important to him as the showrunner.
Social justice, 1, 2, 3.
Personally, I've always considered this whole possibility of Susan showing back a bit of a red herring. I don't think the groundwork was properly laid for it. And if we ultimately find out in this episode that it's not Susan, the doctor's granddaughter, but that's just one mystery woman the Dr. Ncuti wants to find out about. You see, he's also there to find out about Ruby Sunday, or specifically Ruby Sunday's mother.
Ruby Sunday!
Oh, you're going to warm me.
Yeah, I love how Ruby's just so surprised. Like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, this is your life or something. I didn't expect this. What a shock. So yeah, he's there to try to use UNIT technology to help figure out who Ruby's mother is. And somehow, I guess, we're going to make a connection between Susan and Ruby's mother.
You've got a woman that you keep seeing and a woman that you've never seen. Is it the same woman?
This whole idea just smacks of too much coincidence. And again, I thought it was another red herring. I never thought Ruby's mother was going to be, Susan, the doctor's granddaughter. But, they still want to try to figure out who the woman is. So they can use CCTV from that time period. And it turns out Ruby and her mom, Carla, have a videotape of all the CCTV footage that was collected on that day. Yeah, this is a 20-year-old VHS tape, which they've watched throughout the years. I can't imagine it's in good shape. Regardless, Ruby and Rose Noble go back to Ruby's apartment to get the videotape. While there, Carla decides she's not going to stand around while all this is going on. She's going with Ruby back to UNIT to figure out what's happening. And to watch, of course, Ruby's grandmother, she enlists the aid of Mrs. Flood.
Anything I can do to help.
Yeah, Mrs. Flood was a downstairs neighbor. And after they're all gone, it seems like Mrs. Flood has a bit of darkness in her.
He waits no more.
Yeah, a little bit of fourth wall breaking there, talking in about he who waits is waiting no longer. Again, this is tuning into what's supposed to be the overall mystery of this entire season, which I do not think has actually been built up that well compared to how RTD has done it in the past. Back at Unit, we see Kate and Dr. Ncuti discussing issues of his family, the fact that she was never aware of him having a granddaughter, and why did he try to reach out to her at some point. And basically, this is where Dr. Ncuti gets all maudlin, which I didn't think he was supposed to do, because that was the whole purpose of him bi-generating with the 14th Doctor. So all the bad feelings are left behind. But he basically says, I can't go to her because I'd endanger her, because I just bring disaster.
I bring disaster, Kate. Disaster.
And at this point, I thought we were about to get a classic Dr. Ncuti breaks into tears moment.
Come here. Come on.
It really looked like it was going to happen, but I guess the hug from Kate saved us all from another, teary episode. Then Mel shows up with the DNA evidence, which shows, in fact, that Susan Triad is human.
Susan Triad, human confirmed.
Ruby then shows up with the videotape, and Dr. Ncuti asks if they have a time window.
Kate, do you have a time window?
Kate, of course, denies this, but it's wrong. Of course, Unit has built a time window, which, from what I can tell, is a way to create holographic images throughout time of certain events. I think the reference going back to watch the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's not a bad concept, kind of like the holodeck and Next Generation. And once they get down there, Dr. Ncuti is not quite impressed by the sophistication of Unit's time window.
This is rough. Wow, you have lashed this together.
Now, this is actually believable doctor behavior from Dr. Ncuti, because I remember when in the next Doctor, the 10th Doctor, David Tennant, was not so impressed when he saw the next Doctor's TARDIS.
The TARDIS. You've got a blue. TARDIS. TARDIS.
So Dr. Ncuti and Ruby go into the time window room along with the Unit security guard, and they recreate the scene when she was dropped off at the church. They can't see the face of the woman. They keep trying to find an angle. They can't see it. And eventually then Dr. Ncuti shows up in the past, as he did in the church on Ruby Road, in his TARDIS.
I am arriving.
But then things get weird. Dr. Ncuti notices that the TARDIS seems more present than it should be, more physical. And the mystery woman turns around and points at Dr. Ncuti.
She's pointing at you.
Actually, it seems more like she's pointing at something behind the TARDIS, and Dr. Ncuti tells the Unit security officer to go check out what's going on.
No, sorry. No. Not even a flicker.
And then the TARDIS dematerializes, but the security guard isn't there. Yeah, what's going on? Well, things get really weird because a giant cloud of smoke and orange particles appears out of nowhere, and the whole Unit team starts to get very upset. Something bad is going on. They don't know what's going on, but they hear the security guard talking to them, saying that he's in hell, he can't escape.
Just look around and tell us, where are you?
I am in hell.
And then all of a sudden, the time window overloads. Everything's gone, except for basically a sand corpse. It's the corpse of the Unit soldier made entirely of sand on the floor, dead. At this point, Dr. Ncuti decides he and Mel have to go meet Susan Triad, and they go off to the Triad Tech building to meet with her. When they get there, Dr. Ncuti apparently kind of throws a tantrum. Again, this is a point where I thought he would break into tears, but he didn't. I guess it's this him feeling rage, and because of some guilt related to the Unit officer's death. I don't buy this either. I certainly get the doctor feeling remorse that, he may have been responsible. But the doctor would not act this way. I guess Dr. Ncuti does. They put that aside because Mel cheers him up. And then he goes meet Susan, and Dr. Ncuti shakes her hand, and it becomes very clear that she is not a Time Lord. She's not his granddaughter, Susan, but he asks her if she has had any bad dreams.
What do you dream about?
I'm sorry, but we're going to be late, Susan. To lead these two no further.
Dreams about what?
Back at Unit HQ, Kate and her team are trying to analyze videotape, and they figure out that some sort of entity in the videotape is surrounding the TARDIS. And more importantly, it's surrounding the TARDIS right now, sitting in their command room. The link says that something's starting to manifest off the TARDIS. Dr. Ncuti tells everyone to stay away from it. Kate tells everyone to evacuate except for non-essential personnel. She tells Ruby to go down to the time window. I'm really not certain why, but she goes down there. Meanwhile, back at Triad Tech, Sue's about to give her announcement. And then she starts acting really weird, talking about visions and bad dreams.
But I keep having bad dreams.
This is really where this episode gets really jumbled, which I think overall is a problem for this episode. This was a very rushed episode. It felt like everything was being pushed too quick without proper buildup. So while that's happening at Triad, back at Unit, Harriet starts acting weird herself.
And the Lord of Time was blind and vain and knew nothing.
Dr. Ncuti asks, who is she? What's her full name? And that's when Kate says, Harriet Arbinger.
Harriet Arbinger.
Yeah, anagram for Harbinger, which of course you may remember. Harbinger was another character back in the Devil's Cord that signaled the arrival of Maestro. So this is another avatar of whoever is out there trying to pull the strings. And then Harriet starts rattling off a whole bunch of things about who's coming.
The threefold deity of malice and mischief and misery.
And it turns out they got the anagram wrong. Yeah, it's not TARDIS, it's something else entirely. I really don't think they understand what an anagram is, because the Sutek is not an anagram of Susan technology. Guys, what are you doing?
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Regardless, the entity Sutek manifests around the TARDIS. Apparently, it had been clinging to the TARDIS the entire time somehow, and now it's made manifest as kind of like some sort of ancient Egyptian mythological dog creature. I forget what they're called. I don't think it's horse, dog, or something, but it's some sort of mystical god creature. Harriet is turned into some sort of undead looking like monster, as is Susan Triad, and then she ends up killing her PA, turning him to sand. All the while, Dr. Ncuti just stands there, his mouth open, in total terror, not able to do anything.
Vile, incessant universe.
And that's it. That's the end of the episode. Of course, it's a cliffhanger, so honestly, I didn't expect Dr. Ncuti to do a lot in this episode. Not that he really has ever done a lot in any of these episodes. Dr. Ncuti has always been, my opinion, not the, primary protagonist, but more the side character who things happen around. He's not pushing the narrative. Things just happen around Dr. Ncuti. Again, I'll point out, it's good that he did not cry in this episode. There are a couple times he kind of came close. The look of abject fear at the end. You know what? I'm not going to say that it's entirely undoctor-like, that it's totally Dr. Ncuti, because, Sutek was a bad guy, was a villain of classic Doctor Who, going back to Tom Baker Doctor who apparently was quite a formidable villain, but this was a villain from literally 50 years ago. This is 1975. The Sutek showed up in the pyramids of Mars as an Osirian alien that had been stuck in a catacomb in ancient Egypt and was dug up in the early 20th century. I think that's what it was. Honestly, I had to go back and check on this, because I've seen the classic Who way back years ago, but I don't remember this. This is not a villain that I think is really well known. And anyone who's out there saying, oh my God, I can't believe Sutek's finally back, I really doubt that. I don't believe that classic Doctor Who fans who are watching in the 70s are sitting around right now going, oh yeah, I've been waiting for Sutek to come back. Or if they're even watching this. I mean, if they were in the 30s, in the 1970s, 20s or 30s, they're like older. They're older than my parents right now. They're in their 70s and 80s. They're not watching Dr. Ncuti. And if they are, they're wondering what the hell is going on. So this is a callback for no reason. This isn't like bringing back the Master. This isn't bringing back, Daleks or the Cybermen. This is a one-off villain who, yeah, admittedly gave the Doctor a lot of problems until the fourth Doctor figured out how to trap him in a time loop and let him age to death.
No, Sutek. The time of your sirens is long past.
Props to Tom Baker, the fourth Doctor, as always. But I don't know why they brought this back or how this is supposed to be something that's going to push the story. And also, he wasn't this super all-powerful being, the god of all gods. He was an alien. He's a very powerful alien, granted. But he wasn't like, the toy maker or the trickster. I don't think it was ever portrayed that way. So I think they're trying to make a bigger deal out of this villain who was a one-off.
Not a big bad.
And yeah, the whole episode is a bit of a mess. Very much stuck together. Like, I got all these Post-its all over the place. I'm going to put them all together and make a story out of it. I understand they're trying to build to a climactic episode, but I don't think they did it well. And I don't think they generated enough excitement based off who the villain is to say, oh my God. RTD, I think, has lost his touch. I've said it before. And I think the person he has playing the Doctor is not giving a good portrayal of the Doctor. As for the Ruby Sunday storyline, I don't care. Really don't care now at this point. I guess we're going to find out she's somehow tied to Sutek or whatever. We'll see. Last episode of Dr. Ncudi's first season coming up next week. We'll see how it goes. Questions, comments, witticisms down below. Click all those good buttons, and I'll see you guys later.